thank you very much for joining us for our third Meet the Media event. So I'm Maggie Holland. I'm the Global Content Director for B2B IT. So that encompasses ITPro, Channel Pro and Cloud Pro, as well as working closely with our B2B peers, Smart Brief, Tech and Learning, and lots of other titles that you're going to hear more about later on. We're here to launch our latest Future Focus report. Very excited. We've done 2 versions again this year, both with a central core of research. I'm going to try and avoid any spoilers, Jane. Don't want to ruin your session. One distinctly aimed at the IT pro audience, so of value to IT decision makers, and one very much aimed at the people in this room. So PR agencies, clients direct, marketeers, ad agencies, really showing you what insight you need to be aware of so that you can get your messages out to market to that audience. So hopefully we've done the job properly in making sure they really resonate for those 2 distinct audiences. But I'll let you be the judge of that when you get the chance to read the reports as well. So I know you're not here to see me. I know you're here to hear from other people and ask questions. Very, very quickly, some logistics. We're not expecting a fire alarm. So if it does sound, it's real. Through that door there and back in the way you came. Hopefully that won't happen, but if it does, that's your exit there. There's another exit at the end, but this is probably our closest one. The toilets, should you need them, are also out the door just by the lifts. You will need a pass to get back in, so just make sure you kind of wave at someone who works at Future who can let you back in, and we will make sure that happens. We've got some time for networking after the event, and we've got some time hopefully for Q&A as well. Appreciate you're all very busy, so if you need to leave, please do so. We will be sharing the presentation, the reports, and the video of the event. So we're filming everything apart from the Q&A at the very end. So feel free to ask whatever questions you like. You're in a safe space. We won't be using that footage. And if you think of any questions after the event as well, feel free to drop us a line and we will answer those as well. So the first session will be Jane McCallion, our managing editor, presenting on our Future Focus findings. Then we've got an editorial discussion where Jane will be joined by some esteemed colleagues. We then have an industry Q&A, which I'll be moderating, so you won't have seen the last of me, I'll be back. And then we have Amardeep Manga and Amanda Darman-Allen, who are going to be talking about wider Future B2B, and also some case studies about opportunities for us to work together more closely, and also some case studies. And then finally, as I mentioned, we'll have a Q&A. And your speakers today, just in case you want to speak to them after the event or you're wondering who the person is on stage talking next, a fine array of speakers talking about various things, and they will be available for the networking afterwards. So again, if you have any questions or just want to talk in more detail about something, please reach out to these guys here. So without further ado, I am going to hand the mic to Jane McCallion, our managing editor, who's going to give you some highlights of our Future Focus report.
Well, as Maggie says, I am Jane McCallion. I'm the managing editor here at ITPro, and some of you will have met me in person before, others by email, and you may recognize my voice from the podcast if you've been listening. So I'm here to talk to you a little bit about ITPro. Future Focus. So Future Focus is our annual research. We sort of take the pulse of what's important for IT decision makers at the moment. So this year, we spoke to over 700 IT decision makers. So let's just dig into what that means a moment. When we talk about IT decision makers, this isn't just the IT manager anymore. It's also CIOs, CEOs, directors, people who work in line of business. So that could be HR, it could be sales, whatever. What this means is that IT decisions are more global. It's important for people in all of these sectors to have a say because they know what they want. And ultimately, everybody here knows that IT is pervasive in literally everything that we do in almost every line of business. So, one of the key findings that we found. You'll be amazed to hear, I am sure, that AI was the top priority for our respondents. 78% said that it was an area of attention and focus for 2025. Now, this is as compared to 41% for 2024. So very nearly double. I think that tells you a little bit, we'll listen about AI, but actually, it is a real thing for IT decision makers. Indeed, 46% said that they would be spending between 11% and 30% of their budget, their entire IT budget, on AI in 2025. Next up, cybersecurity. Once again, probably not that much of a surprise. 66% said it was a top focus. Ransomware, interestingly, is no longer the top concern for IT decision makers. When we ask them to list what are their greatest worries, I guess, when it comes to cybersecurity, it's actually now phishing. Ransomware has fallen down to position 4. There may be an element of AI in that it makes it easier for people to craft convincing emails. It might just be that we're getting better at catching ransomware, but I thought that was quite an interesting little nugget. Both security and AI readiness were also listed as of greater importance this year than last. So AI, it's not just actually buying it, AI readiness as in actually implementing it within your business. This isn't just pilot projects. It's not just having a think about how you might do AI. It's like, right, okay, we've got to do this. We've got to think about agents. We've got to really knuckle down and think about how we're going to spend all this money if we're going to invest it. So of the remaining 3 of the top 5, 60% said that automation was a great concern for them, a great area of interest and investment. 56% said it was analytics, and 55% said business apps. So once again, that might come as a little bit of a surprise, the last one. It seems very eclectic, all of them. But ultimately, there is one thing that unifies all of them, which is data. AI can't run without data. It's the fundamental of it. Analytics, what are you analyzing? Data, typically. Automation, it runs on data. Cybersecurity, if you're doing anything like some kind of telemetry or analytics where it might be a little bit odd, where here I am standing in London doing a presentation, if my computer were then to log on in Malaysia and try to access some finance documents, hopefully your cybersecurity is going to flag that. That's a bit of an unusual behaviour from me. Also worth noting, though, you might be surprised to see that cloud wasn't one of the top 5. That doesn't mean that it is not important, however. It's still within the top 10, and with the cloud situation is evolving quite a lot. So we've, at the very beginning of the kind of cloud explosion, there was a lot of excitement about public cloud. I'm sure many of us who've been kicking around for a while will remember that we were told over and over again, it's public cloud, everything's going to be in public cloud, nobody's going to have a data center anymore, it's going to be fab. And then it turned out that that's not really quite the reality of it. People still need to have some of their data or something that they need low latency on site. So we saw the emergence of hybrid cloud. We are now seeing IT decision makers look more and more at private cloud as well. Part of this is fueled by concerns about data sovereignty, about security, that kind of thing, but also the public cloud is getting more and more expensive, and just the economy is starting to work out better if you think about private cloud and managed cloud services as well. Sustainability was also in our top 10. We just wanted to highlight that. Similarly, it is important. It is something that people are still interested in. It can have impacts up and down the supply chain. Your customers might find it important. Other companies who are further up, it can have an impact on their own corporate responsibility. So it is still something that is of importance, even if it's not in the top 5. So with me, I now have Rory Bathgate, who is our Features and Multimedia Editor, Ross Kelly, our News and Analysis Editor, and Bobby Hallard, who is our Reviews Editor. So we're just going to dig into some of these results a little bit more. And Rory, I'd like to start with you. So can you tell us a little bit about the biggest AI trends right now?
Yeah, so I think AI agents are a big focus going into 2025. Anyone who's paid attention to the news in the last few days will have heard the word DeepSeek. I'll get onto that in a sec. It does have implications, but maybe not as apocalyptic implications as was being made out early this week. I think what you see borne out in the stats from the report is that AI has now shifted from an area of intense interest to an area of intense investment. So there was a 24% of respondents said they'd be spending between 20 and 30% of their budget on AI this year. 78% put it in their top 3 areas of interest, and that's up from last year significantly, which shows that it's gone from an area maybe of intense hype, and it was definitely on people's radar, but now it's a core area of focus. So AI agents play into that kind of beautifully. They're a very tangible way of implementing AI. There's ROI there, and that's really what we're starting to see is people are chasing that revenue picture, that return on investment. AI is no longer a speculative investment. You're not getting your foot in the game. You are investing to get returns this year. DeepSeek, I have to mention, obviously I couldn't necessarily foresee that specific model causing such upset, if you'd asked me last week.
What kind of journalist are
I
you
know,
that you
I
didn't
know.
see this coming?
Not predicting the future, but I think what DeepSeek actually shows is that there's potential at the edge for AI. DeepSeek really validates that you can get performant AI models with reasoning capabilities and run them on a gaming GPU. And that's very good for companies that were already looking to deploy AI at the edge. That was already in contention. What wasn't in contention necessarily was that proof that you don't need to rely on the cloud to run AI models that can really, in a very sophisticated way, meet the demands of your business. So a lot of worry about that, but also I think there's a lot to be very hopeful about in DeepSeek. I think it shows that when it comes to unlocking efficiency gains on low-powered hardware, there's a lot for companies to exploit there.
And if you would like to hear more on this topic, may I gently encourage you to listen to tomorrow's ITPro podcast. Bobby, so let's talk a little bit about hardware. Obviously, that's your area of speciality. What are some of the AI hardware trends that we are seeing?
Well, last year was the year of the AI PC. If it wasn't a MacBook or a Chromebook, it was an AI PC that we reviewed. We had a piece go up over Christmas about how Gen AI had kind of changed the laptop a little bit. So you have NPU chips and Copilot buttons. That piece was a little bit negative, suggesting that we didn't quite see the benefits of it at the moment. But there are certain use cases for self-diagnosing laptops and certainly stuff for image editing and writing emails faster. But that's now starting to move into desktop PCs and mini PCs, which will probably be more apparent as we go through this year.
Rory, you've touched on this a little bit already, but I'm going to give you the opportunity to elaborate. How well do you think that IT decision makers, both in the IT department and across the wider business, actually understand AI and how it can be used?
I think it's fair to say that from a strategic perspective, AI is now reasonably well understood. There are model advancements, there are agent advancements, but if you're looking to invest in AI, it's no longer a question of figuring out where it belongs in your business. That's what 2024 was for a lot of companies. What we are seeing is a recognition, it's like the saying that the more you know, the more you don't know, right? 75% of respondents said that AI readiness was going to be a big area of concern or a big area of focus for them this year. That means getting your employees skilled in AI and getting used to the workflows of AI. So obviously the big promise of things like AI agents is that that should be a relatively seamless process. You'd hope that it can be embedded in apps that you already have or in workflows to the extent that employees don't have to get a big manual out and learn how to use the AI model, right? That's what natural language input is for. But that is definitely, I guess, a big concern for 2025 is, okay, we know what we don't know. Let's get to work on making sure that by the end of the year, we're all comfortably using it.
Ross, moving away from AI for a moment, let's talk about cybersecurity. So ransomware has been replaced by phishing, as I said. Why do you think this is?
I think it's a good example of cyber criminals playing the odds game, so to speak. So phishing's been a problem for several years, especially when you look at hybrid working. You're not in the same office as your IT savvy colleagues. If something lands in your inbox, you're perhaps more likely to click it when you're at home. There's also, like I said, the odds game. When you look at the sheer volume of phishing emails that go out every day by cyber criminals, all you need is one hit, and that can be, game over for an organization. Coming back to AI again, when you combine that with the fact that you now have, chatbot services specifically made for cyber criminals, you have Worm GPT, you have Ghost GPT, which there's a bit of research out this week on the website about. This is allowing cyber criminals to really curate finely curate phishing emails, far more convincing phishing emails, things that are going to slip through nets far more often and dupe people into clicking malicious links, but also in terms of being able to up the volume of these convincing emails that they're able to send and distribute out to people. So yeah, it's a bit of a sort of trifecta of issues. You have people at home, perhaps not as aware as or as vigilant as they would be in the office. You have cyber criminals going, yeah, let's just absolutely bombard people with this. All we need is one hit. And they're using these, great tools, I suppose you could say, to actually, great if you're a cyber criminal, not if you're in the IT or security team, but yeah, using these great tools to be able to up the volume.
It's interesting that you say that, actually, because one of our respondents did say that the biggest issue that they faced last year was a successful phishing attack on their accounting department. So it is a real problem that real people are facing. Bobby, I am going to change tack once again. So let's talk about the relationship that customers have with vendors. There was quite a lot of variation in that with our research. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yes, so in the report, product was and aftercare service were the main things that people looked for when they're looking for new products and services. Pricing kind of mattered as well. And then a little bit further down was vendor reputation. But what was interesting is that people were willing to spend a little bit more and try out new services and new products if it had all the bells and whistles, which basically is AI products. So there's kind of an opportunity for smaller brands and startup brands there.
Ross, what is the role of the channel rather in building these relationships and the procurement journey?
Yeah, the channel's cool. They do a lot of great work, and they sit at that critical intersection between end user organizations and the vendors themselves. When you look at organizations across all sizes, from small to medium, large enterprises, regardless of how big they are, they're going to have some form of technical expertise issue potentially. That's where the channel plays a really critical role, because they help plug those gaps. So that system integrators aspect of it is really important. I think we'll continue to see that through this year. We've seen it for the last couple of years. We're constantly talking about skills and skills deficits in the UK tech sector and at a lot of companies. That's where the channel's really critical there, because they're able to come in and help you, and they've got that guiding hand role in any process, whether you're going through a digital transformation program, adopting some new solutions, services. It's critical for them.
Well, thank you very much to my three panelists. It is now time for me to hand over to Maggie Holland for Fireside Chat with an industry expert.
Thank you very much, Jane. That was a great discussion. And we could have probably filled hours and hours of that. You're probably grateful we haven't, because you're very busy people, but there's lots more to digest in the report that we'll send, and obviously Jane and colleagues are around as well, so thank you for that. Now I get to do the reason I became a journalist. The best bit of my job is talking to people. I'm absolutely delighted to moderate this question and answer session, or fireside chat as we call it in the industry, and to be joined by Fawad Qureshi, who's the Global Field CTO for Snowflake. Thank you so much for joining me. Really appreciate that.
Thank you for having me.
You're more than welcome. So, got quite a few questions to go through. Some of the subjects will not surprise you based on the session and what we've talked about so far. So, I'll get going. If we could start, Fawad, if you could give us a bit of an insight into Snowflake as a company, and also more specifically your role and responsibilities.
All right. I'll start with Snowflake. So, Snowflake started 12 years ago as a cloud data warehouse platform, and our mission was to eliminate the various type of data silos in different organizations, bring all of the data into a single platform, which will then allow the customers to run all types of workloads on it, analytics, AI, and all. And now, with all the advent of AI, everyone is talking about you cannot have AI without consolidating all of the data. So what we started a decade or so ago is now everyone is coming to an agreement that this is required, and that's why we are at the forefront of delivering powerful AI solutions to all of our customers. On a personal level, my role is as the field CTO. I've become the bridge between technology and business for our customers, helping them build solutions that are going to serve their needs, and covering, from regulations, policy, governance, all of those best practices, and helping them succeed in this digital age.
So not busy at all.
Yeah.
Lots to keep you interested, certainly at the current time, I'd imagine. So perhaps no real surprise, and it's been mentioned in the panel discussion, that AI features heavily in our Future Focus report and the conversations that we're having all day, every day, and obviously a recent government announcement a few weeks ago as well. 78% of respondents cited it as one of their top 3 priorities, and we asked them to rate it for 2025. We also asked them, the same respondents this year, to talk about how that looked in context to last year, and it was 41%. That's a big, quite dramatic shift upwards. So what do you think has led? Has it been one particular thing or lots of different things driving that?
Right. I have been in the industry just over 25 years. And what I've seen is 25 years ago, what is now called AI, it was a geek's world. So there was only a bunch of mathematicians, scientists working on this. So this AI was a curiosity. It has become a necessity now. It used to be used in the dark rooms, in the back corners. Now it is a boardroom topic. And the reason why it has happened is it has become consumerized. Just like back in the 60s and 70s, there were computers, but those trucks-sized computers, right? So those computers that will fill this entire room, they were still being used, but it wasn't until the PC revolution took place when computing became an everyday thing. I think the advent of ChatGPT and Gen AI became that iPhone moment or the PC moment for this thing. And what we see now is almost everyone is using AI in their day-to-day life, from consumers and all, and then now businesses are talking about how they can make use of this technology to find different kind of optimizations and process improvement inside their businesses today. So that's overall the shift, right? Going from the backstage to the front end of the room, and in everyday conversation now people are using it for, okay, what should I cook for this week, right? So asking ChatGPT for different kind of recipes and all the kind of things, right? So planning and all. So it is becoming an everyday topic, and that is really why it has become such top of the mind agenda for everyone, be it the consumer or be it the business executive.
Absolutely. I mean, it's everywhere, and I don't think you can have a conversation today, whether it's with your friends, down the pub, or colleagues in the office, without AI coming up. It's everywhere. We can't escape that, which is timely, given that we've launched a report today that's largely about AI. AI readiness, and it's almost like we've chatted, Rory, because you queued this up really, really well during the panel session, but AI readiness was also cited as being more important this year for respondents than last. Like, what does that look like in reality, AI readiness from your perspective?
Like I mentioned in the first response, it's all about data, right? So without good data, there is no AI. In fact, with bad data, you'll get bad AI, garbage in, garbage out thing. And what you want to build systems, those autonomous systems that want to make decisions, they want to run processes, and you don't have the full picture or you have incomplete data, they are going to be very challenging for businesses to approve. So it is really important for businesses to think about how do they get a complete 360-degree view of the business, end to end. So what, again, going back here, data has always been generated in businesses processes, right? So we talk about industrialization from industry 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, and now we are talking about 4.0. Really, the difference between Industry 3.0 and 4.0, 3.0 was somewhere between 1960 and 1970. Data was generated, but data was a byproduct of doing business. It was the digital exhaust. And now it is a time of converting that digital exhaust into a digital fuel. And that's the closed loop operation that you need to build. Every time you make a decision, I'll collect data, I'll bring that data back into my processes, and then I'll correct and course correct, and that's how you keep on building those systems. And that self-fulfilling loop is absolutely required in building that AI efficiency.
I'm going to shift gears slightly. So this isn't in order of the questions to discuss. So, but it segues nicely from what you've just talked about there of data. You know, and data was definitely, Jane, you mentioned it as well. Data being a common theme that unites all of the areas, all of the topics that came in our top 10 and just were talked about by respondents. So, what are your thoughts and feelings on this? You've kind of given us a little bit of a taster there, but maybe you could expand on that. In terms of data being the connecting theme between all of the technologies that are really important.
Yeah, I think data is going to become the differentiating aspect, and what level of the data is being captured and how it is being distributed across the ecosystem and shared. And then importantly, you know, in Europe particularly, we're going to talk about privacy, right? So privacy and handling the different kind of governance models and all. And in fact, something that I've used personally many times when I get those really interesting cold calls when people are trying to sell me some stuff. So my first question to them is, how did you get access to my data? Because I never gave you my phone number. And then they tell me, oh, I got this interesting company. And I said, what is that interesting company? So I give them a few GDPR regulation clauses. And they are really, really pleased. So that poor sales development representative on their first day of job are not going to remember that call very fondly. Because under GDPR, there is a very clear clause called right to explanation. Okay, so first you need to explain to me how did you get access to the data. Second, if you are making me an offer, you are building an AI model and giving me an explanation. I am entitled to an explanation. How did you secure the data? What practices you applied? What models you applied? And how did you find that I was a good fit for this model? And this cannot be done unless you have the complete lineage, traceability, and audit of your entire processes. Ignorance is no longer going to be an excuse in the AI age. And that will have a lot of repercussions for businesses who do not follow those correct practices from a data perspective.
Absolutely. Serious stuff, guys. Cybersecurity and automation also feature really, really highly on the list and have definitely grown in importance year on year. Do you think this is always a given, you know, that they come hand in hand with the data point and AI, or have certain changes or trends more recently been driving?
Again, when more and more systems connecting to systems, right? So machines talking to machines. So that means there's a lot more data being collected, generated, and stored. And there are a lot of practices that you need to bring into play. So on a need-to-know basis becomes very important, right? So why is somebody getting access to certain systems? And then more importantly, right? So AI is going to become the next race to the moon. Countries are going to aim for, you know, AI supremacy. There are going to be national level government-backed attacks as well. And that is going to happen. And so in order to do that, you need to make sure that your systems are in the most secure and top-governed form. And this is going to be of paramount importance all across the industry. So all type of data is susceptible to be attacked. There are going to be various type of threat actors, local, national, international, and that is where, you know, a lot of focus is going to come up. So that's why, you know, if you look at the number of cybersecurity jobs that have come up in the last few years, that is going to be even more in the next 5 years, because the more data we come in, the more it will make it an attractive target to attack. And, you know, something that we always, it always fascinates me. All the data that is going to be generated in the next year is going to be more than the data that was ever generated since the advent of humanity till now. So it's an exponential rise. It's the second half of the chessboard, as various people talk about, right? So going that exponential rise in technology and data generation.
Analytics, business apps, cloud, collaboration, machine learning, and also software as an umbrella category also feature in our list of the sort of top 10 priorities, areas of focus for the IT audience in 2025. Do any of these surprise you, or is it as expected?
It is pretty much expected, because there's a lot of, if you notice, all of those themes are a little bit what I would call at the application side of the things, right? So getting value out of the data, right? So analytics, cloud, sharing, and all of that. So I want to get more data, right? So I want to understand, what does my supply chain look like? I want to capture the data. So that's where it's becoming more important, especially in Europe, with all the regulations around sustainability with CSRD, right? So I want to understand what is happening in my supply chain. So I was talking to a major retailer here in Europe, and their head of compliance said, Fawad, what if the supplier of my 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 supplier, 7 chains down the link in Thailand, is using child labor in their practices? I'm responsible for that, because I'm benefiting from it. And just because I don't have the data for it, because my ERP system only has information about my tier 0 supplier, is not enough. So those the kind of things. So there are regulations, there are business practices that are demanding that you get full awareness, full chain visibility, as it is called, not just for sustainability reasons, but for understanding what happens if there's a supply chain disruption. So those kind of use cases are becoming so critical across all of the industries that, I mean, everything that you said, analytics, sharing, collaboration, cloud, and all, this is becoming need of the hour.
Absolutely. And you mentioned sustainability there, and that was something that also featured in our research findings, which was a little bit surprising for me, and it definitely feels like it's much more, or not at all even, a tick box exercise, like now more than ever. Would you be able to just expand on why that's so important?
So in the panel, we discussed briefly about DeepSeek. One of the main reasons why DeepSeek created so much ripple in the industry. So I created some content on LinkedIn Learning on a course on how do you measure the carbon footprint of AI models. The GPT 3.5 model, when it was trained, it consumed 700,000 liters of water to cool down the servers. One human being in Europe consumes 50,000 liters of water a year. So that single model training consumed 14 human beings' annual water consumption in one go. So what DeepSeek was able to do was, I can do it cheaper. And oftentimes, when you talk about I can do it cheaper, it results in carbon efficiencies as well. When everything becomes AI automated, everything gets connected, what would happen? There is going to be more and more focus on, okay, how can I make it sustainable? Sustainable is, what I always say, it is always a good business to be a good business. I want to go into that long-term mindset. Do you know that as per a World Economic Forum report, every 100 days, the carbon emission from AI is doubling? Every 100 days across the world. While we are starting off a tiny base, there are still bigger carbon emitters, right? So energy and transportation and all. But at this rate, every 100 days, we are getting into that chessboard situation. That's why sustainability is no longer just a tick box exercise. It is absolutely imperative for us to understand how do we build and grow our businesses sustainably in the long term.
Absolutely, and I think it's the responsibility of all of us as individuals within our businesses and as an industry to make sure we're harnessing technologies like AI for good, but also be mindful of the wider impact. Absolutely. Now, if you forgive me, I'm going to read off my card, and I promise on the sustainability theme, I don't print things very often, so I am a good citizen in that respect. But I just want to make sure I'm not misquoting the excerpt from your LinkedIn profile that I'm going to read out. So you've been in the industry for 20 plus years, Fawad. You've worked in more than 50 countries during that time, and on LinkedIn, I think you list one of your key strengths as acting as a technology interpreter, bridging the gap between complex technologies and individuals who struggle to grasp them. Now, I love this. So powerful as a statement. Are you able to share some real-world examples of this in action, and also maybe talk about, given you've worked in so many different geographies, any common trends or even differences that you've seen over that time?
What I always say in general in this industry events, that B2B marketing has led us down very much. If you go to the website of many of these tech companies, they'll say, an AI-powered synergistic platform to deliver superior elevated customer experience to take you through digital transformation. And you're like, what do you actually do? Right? It is a buzzword bingo. And every day I get emails and LinkedIn messages, dude, this is this website. Can you tell me what is this company? Oh, this is a bloody database. That's what it is. And what they do is they pepper it with all the things that is coming up along, and everything has to be sprinkled with the AI magic dust. That is what is happening. In fact, so it is happening so much that Security Exchange Commission in the US last year came up with a regulation called AI washing. Just like greenwashing, there is a concept of AI washing. You cannot claim to be powered by AI or delivering AI-powered experience if you just use ChatGPT in the background to create a recipe for your next lunch. And that's unfortunately what is happening. And to give you the example, right? So one of the, this becomes so critical for us, right? So when I started my career, I started in data back then, and I had the CTO came in and he asked us questions. So why do companies make data warehouses? So we were all young techies, just went through a factory boot camp course, and we said, okay, 360-degree view of the business, single view of this and the blah, 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 and all that jargon that he had done. He said, you guys are all wrong. Companies make data warehouses to make money. Then he asked a follow-up question. Why do data warehouses project fail? Again, techies, lack of data quality, agile versus waterfall, and this and that, blah, blah, blah. He said, you guys don't learn. Companies make data warehouses to make money. And those projects fail because they fail to make money. And that's the point that we need to elevate on how are you delivering those things. And just to think about this, right? So compare B2C versus B2B. And I'll talk about an example. Let's talk about toilet paper. You go to Tesco, you pick up the toilet paper. What will it say? Soft, 3-ply, easily dissolvable and all. What will a B2B marketer say? An efficient, fiber-optimized, highly hygienic toilet optimizing device to take customer experiences to the next level. This is what they will do. So that is why, unfortunately, people like me are required to translate whatever that was listed in different languages. It seems like English, but it is far from English. So to translate into what is required. So that's, unfortunately, this is the theme, like you said, across industry and across region. This is everywhere. So creating that noise, and unfortunately, coming back to, bit of jest, but really making it a bit serious. A confused mind never buys. If there are like 20 products claiming to do the same thing with similar kind of jargons, you're creating confusion for the buyer. You're not coming to the point of what you're delivering, and that's what I try to do, working with the customers. Okay, what is it? What is the bottom line, and how can it help you in your business journey?
Absolutely. It'd be remiss of me not to say, given the audience, that if you're struggling with your buzzword bingo, then Future B2B, we can absolutely help you out there. So segueing on to, we've got a couple more questions left. We've got about 4 or 5 minutes left of this session. So can I ask, what was your highlight of 2024, both from an industry and a Snowflake perspective? And then what are you most excited about in 2025?
In 2024, from a Snowflake perspective, what we delivered a number of new experiences around AI. We released our Cortex suite of products, which really makes it simpler and easier to consume. And again, the key thing that I always talk to my clients about technology is a good technology should be invisible. A good technology should be running in the background without you focusing on the technology. A good technology should be like the geyser boiler at home. If every day you're talking to your partner about the geyser, it is broken. You should never talk about the geyser. You should never talk about the boiler. You should never talk about Snowflake. And that's what we have delivered last year from an AI perspective. Really, whatever is required at the back end, we'll handle it for you, and you connect on your AI application. You build your AI solution, and that's what we have delivered in there.
First rule of Snowflake is we don't talk about Snowflake, apart from in this select group, obviously. So what one piece of advice would you give to IT decision makers right now, Fawad, and why?
Again, and the same thing will sound like a broken record, but collect the data and consolidate it, because that consolidation will not just help you in improving your delivering on your business goals and all. It will also help you in your sustainability goals as well. Because what happens is you start having those data copied over multiple systems, and that creates another challenge. And just to give you an example, I was working with a major public agency here in the UK. They have 2.5 exabytes of data. That is 2,500 petabytes. The unique data is only about 250 petabytes, which is still a lot, but it is copied 10 times over into 8 different systems, because each system requires its own little format and structure. And think it from a sustainability point of view, when you start getting into those petabytes and exabytes, you are talking about a lot of carbon emission being consumed by those. And then lack of efficiencies and all. So this is what we need to think about. How do I bring the data into a singular solution so I can build a proper data governance model and build effective transformation programs without using any of the buzzwords.
Great stuff. And final question then, and this is one I always love asking, because it's a bit future gazy, and you don't necessarily have to be right when we're talking about the future, but it pays sometimes to be so. So if we were to meet again a year from now, hopefully we'll talk lots in between now and then, what sort of things would you like to be talking about, Fawad? And conversely, what would you not want to be talking about?
I think, again, what happened with DeepSeek and all, we can think of this AI as multiple layers. DeepSeek is operating as what we would call it as a foundation model. I think those foundation models, those fights will still happen at the big tech level. But what I will see is there will be more agentic applications, AI solutions that are being built, and that is where a lot of value would be created. Imagine that somebody builds a very comprehensive AI agent that will solve all of your holiday booking tensions. Do you care whether it runs on DeepSeek or OpenAI or whatever? If it is able to deliver that. So these are where people are trying to build those experiences. And also what we'll see in the next 12 to 24 months, there are going to be more and more startups who are delivering these kind of agentic experiences. And in order to do that, they will be flexible and pluggable, so they can port, right? So if they are working on OpenAI or one model or the other, they will be able to port their experiences and all. And that's what we'll see in the next 2 years or so.
Definitely exciting times ahead. A lot more to keep you and others very busy during that time. So it's been fun. I've really enjoyed this conversation. Fawad, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wanted to give you a quick background on who we are and the family that ITPro is a part of. So ITPro is a part of the global B2B division here at the global Future business. We are a media business and a marketing services business that covers nearly every sector of the economy. And together, globally, we reach more than 10 million business decision makers every single day. And there's a lot of brands that do that work day in and day out. So we can go to the next slide, and I can share with you a bit about that reach. So a year ago, we formed the B2B division here at Future. As Fawad talked about, B2B is unique in its nature. It is very different than B2C in terms of how we talk to our audiences, the information we're trying to convey. So that work is the work that we do day in and day out, trying to make sure that we're bringing specialist content to our audiences to better convey the topics that we're working to convey. But what's really unique about Future B2B is bringing those brands together means that we cover 15 vertical end markets, from IT decision makers to education decision makers, financial services, retail, tech and telecom, food and beverage. You can see the likes of the industries we cover here. But it makes us a really, really unique platform for people to come to us and better understand how industries are moving, what people care about in their day jobs, who's buying what products and services to make sure that they can drive their business forward. And it's this type of content that we focus on day in and day out. And our engagement stats give you a little bit of a flavor of the type of reach and the type of scale that we have. We are reaching our audiences where they are. So that's in email in their inboxes every single morning with the latest news in their industry and how industries are moving forward. We're reaching them on webinars, again, explaining topics that are really quite complex and trying to make them simple and understand how to buy, when to buy, and what that journey looks like. We're covering content on the web and engaging with people on websites and on social, and still in print. So we're really focused on being multi-channel. We're focused on meeting our audiences where they are and making sure that we're able to deliver that content to the audiences and then connect back with our advertisers that keep our lights on. And we work with more than 2,000 clients annually to make sure that we're connecting those buyers and those sellers with the right type of content and the right type of marketing. So that's just a bit of a flavor of who Future B2B is and who we represent. Amardeep's going to talk a little bit about a case study and how we have brought those channels, brought those audiences together to go further and reach broader audiences collectively. And happy to chat with any of you afterwards. I'll be here. So thank you for having us.
So this is the sales bit. So in terms of, Amanda touched on Future B2B, I really wanted to kind of talk about what it means for our clients. So at the core of ITPro, our kind of conversations with clients have always been centered around our ability to engage our audience through advertising, to nurture them through content, and then to kind of drive conversions for brands via kind of, digital form fills. But with Future B2B, we're able to really kind of broaden those offerings through kind of tapping into different and new types of expertise. So example of that, Actual Tech Media is a brand that falls within Future B2B. They produce over 500 live webinars in a year. So, we're really kind of starting to tap into that webinar space and tap into their expertise and their moderators and they're almost their influencers at this point to be able to create great content with that medium. We're able to leverage the broader Future B2B ecosystem to kind of offer not only larger scale, but more multi-touch campaigns. And then we're also able to tap into the expertise of our kind of smart studio who create content and such a broader range of content than what we've ever had to take to market before. So, we range from sponsored articles to white papers to ebooks. We even produce comic books. So, certainly share some examples of that as well. With an ecosystem that encompasses more brands, with an ecosystem that therefore gives us a much larger reach, we're now in a stronger position than ever to kind of really offer true kind of full funnel brand to demand solutions. And this slide is kind of just really tapping into that, which is, how are we able to surround key accounts? How are we able to offer multiple touch points, all the way from kind of awareness, brand activity, brand content, to actually generating leads for our brands. And just an example of and a case study of how we've done this, because we can talk the talk, but we wanted to kind of show you how we walk the walk. So this is an example of a campaign that we ran with Cohesity. It really kind of touches on some of the things that I just talked about, which is, a huge amount of content produced, so webinars, sponsored articles, huge amount of awareness activity around emails and kind of display activity. All of the content was housed and sat on a hub within ITPro, and this really gave kind of the ability to work with the brand to kind of not only produce content but provide a home for their content as well. And I think the the most impressive thing for me on this slide is the CTR stats. So, these stats are all above industry benchmarks. So, across the live webinars, we had over 40% conversion from registration to live attendance. We had 38% open rate on brand awareness emails, 23% CTR, 2.16% on digital ad impressions. And the reason why we talk about these numbers is because this isn't what, a single email send or, that's you don't get those stats from a single email send. You get these stats from a campaign which nurtures, has multiple touch points, and, has lots of different ways to engage with your target audience. And a unique element and something that is kind of brand new and something that we'll be actually taking to market in 2025 is we're able to bring the ability to track engagement across all of the different touch points of the campaign. So it allows us to produce a campaign effectiveness score, which is based on, how many accounts watched a webinar, how many accounts watched, saw an ad, engaged in an ad, raised a hand in a webinar. So we've created a scoring system which kind of brings that all together, and then we're able to kind of really talk to brands about these are the most engaged accounts that your sales team should be targeting. And whilst we cannot share the specific scoring results, I wanted to share just some of these top line figures. So we had 109 accounts from the brand's target account list which engaged with at least 3 of the 4 different elements of the campaign. So that's webinars, that's advertising, that's content, that's newsletters. We had 113 accounts from the account list which registered for at least 1 webinar, downloaded at least 1 asset, and then in terms of overall engagement, we had over 4,000 accounts, or almost 4,000 accounts, which engaged with the entirety of the program. Our teams will be kind of going out to market and giving more specific details, but we're going to be around after this if you do want to have any conversations.
That brings me to say thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it, and we hope you found it useful.